This is Inside the Right. Okay, so Tim, we have some breaking news here just released by the New York Times. Reportedly, in the immediate aftermath of January 6, 2021, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito displayed an upside down American flag at his house, which was the official Stop the Steal symbol used by Trump supporters in the immediate aftermath of that 2020 election. Does it not pose a problem that this guy is right now hearing cases directly pertaining to Trump and January 6th?
It poses a huge problem. And it's not just him. I've been banging the drum for a long time about the fact that Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, was actively plotting with the Trump administration on the Stop the Steal effort. So, look, the Alito thing is extremely bad. Don't get me wrong. It's showing sympathies with the Stop the Steal protesters after January 6th. It's one thing if it was like it was before January 6th, and
Right,
and then they're like, oh gosh, we didn't realize how deep we were in this thing. And that still would have been bad. After January 6th, that's horrible. But I think it kind of pales in comparison to how horrible it is that Clarence Thomas is like going to bed at night, presumably, and having dinner at night, presumably, with one of the plotters, with one of the
right.
coup plotters. It's two of the nine people on the Supreme Court. Neither of them were Trump appointees, interestingly. And so I think this is a huge problem. I've been banging the drum on this for a while. The Democratic Judicial Committee in the Senate should have been investigating Ginny Thomas, and doing more oversight. Dick Durbin, the Democrat out of Illinois, has been unwilling to do that for, I don't know, norms reasons or
Right.
something. And
Right.
so I think this is just more evidence that there is. I don't want to go so far as to say it's illegitimate. It's a nine-person court, but there's certainly something rotten with what's going on with the Supreme Court.
Well, does it call into question here the Supreme Court's decision to not only take up this insane case regarding presidential immunity, but also give Trump the delay that he was seeking in this DC trial?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly obvious that Alito is essentially working with Trump in this regard. Yeah, I mean, maybe not directly. I don't know, they're not communicating, but just listening to the language and the radicalization. He's giving some speeches lately, and the language and the rulings he's put out. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Alito is helping Trump by pushing for various things such as this kick the can strategy. Now he didn't do it alone. Obviously, there was a majority in the court for it. But I do think it does. I don't, you know, I, so I think it's bad, and it should be condemned what Alito is doing. I don't think he should recuse himself because of an upside down flag. I do think that Clarence Thomas should have to recuse himself from all January 6th cases, and I don't think that is a extreme ask in any way, and I think that would change the balance of the court. Yeah, I think it definitely raises some questions.
Alito was asked for a comment by the New York Times, and he actually gave a quote here. He said, "I had no involvement whatsoever in the flying of the flag. It was briefly placed by Mrs. Alito in response to a neighbor's use of objectionable and personally insulting language on yard signs." So, what do you make of that?
That doesn't sound true. I guess is what I would say. I don't, you know,
I would also add,
maybe
like,
they've.
usually the people who have insulting language on yard signs are on the same side as who Mrs. Alito would presumably be supporting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, look, maybe they just have brain worms. I don't know. But just let's say hypothetically, I do. There were protesters at the time outside some of the justice houses. So, even if there were some left-wing protesters, having mean language on their signs, like, what is turning the flag upside down gonna say? Like, I don't understand why that would be a rebuke to them
Right.
in any way, or why they would see that as a rebuke. It's just like, oh, the missus did this. I mean, you can see in the picture, it's on the front of the house. And like you walk into the house and out of the house, you'd assume a patriot like Samuel Alito would notice that the American flag was upside down. So I guess I'm just not buying it.
Yeah, I mean, he lives there. He's walking in the door every day, so presumably he'd be able to look up and use his eyes. And you would hope somebody who's currently, presiding over the Supreme Court of the United States would be perceptive enough to see that the American flag in front of his own house is upside down.
Yeah, and right, and this is the thing. I'm for free speech. People want to put the flag upside down to do some dumb protest in support of Donald Trump, or if lefties want to burn the flag because they're mad about something. Like I've never been one of those. We should jail people for burning the flag. Types you gotta show so much respect to the flag. But to me, this is all a question of this. They know what they're doing. This is a Supreme Court justice that's ostensibly a conservative, that's ostensibly an American patriot, that at least proclaims to have respect for traditions and things such as the flag. Like they didn't just put it up the flagpole upside down by accident, and they did not do it to like as a push. You know what I mean? Whatever that excuse was, that
Yeah.
like it was their response to the protesters. Like that is nonsensical. So the Occam's razor here is that Samuel Alito, who in his words and actions has demonstrated that he's extremely sympathetic to Trump and that he's gone fully MAGA, was in line with the many other MAGA Americans that stormed the Capitol and that wanted to overturn the election and put Donald Trump in as an unelected autocrat. And having two members of the Supreme Court out of nine that were at minimum sympathetic to that view is alarming.
What do you think the solution is for the Supreme Court? Like you're not some rabid leftist here, so I think we can get some semblance of an objective opinion here for somebody who just recognizes that there are some major issues with the U.S. Supreme Court as it stands right now.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot over at the Bulwark because we have different varying views, on it. Pete Buttigieg, for example, put some. I would be for some Supreme Court reforms. This is kind of fantasy land. Like for me, the best thing to do would be that we'd have some sort of commission and that we'd end up changing it so Supreme Court justices had term limits and maybe we add two seats and you rotate it. Try to depoliticize. I mean, like you're never going to depoliticize the Supreme Court, but just try to take the air out of it a little bit so not every seat is not this life or death battle. As far as like expanding the court, some of my colleagues at the board are opposed to that. I just come around on being like relatively sympathetic to adding two seats potentially as a solution. I don't think it's a very realistic solution given how many how close the Senate is. But in a imaginary world where the Democrats won enough Senate seats, I just think the reality is that Mitch McConnell stole a Senate seat or stole a Supreme Court seat. Excuse me. Like
Yeah.
I don't. I was not as radicalized as someone left by Kavanaugh. I thought that whatever you think about Kavanaugh's past, like the Kavanaugh process was how the process works. The Merrick Garland seat and the Amy Coney Barrett seat, they came up in the same situation. McConnell did not approve Merrick Garland. He did approve Amy Coney Barrett. You can call that what you want, but it was a stolen Supreme Court seat. And so, at some point, I think that potential reforms or expansions I would be open to. I just think it's going to be very tough in this political environment. And lastly, as I said at the top, there should be oversight. They should be investigating Clarence Thomas for what he knew about his wife's activities with regards to January 6th.
Yeah, and the fact that you can sit here and say this as somebody who has worked in Republican politics for a long time, and we still have Democratic senators who are just falling over themselves to protect these norms, as if that's the whole ball game here, as if government service is in service of protecting the norms that are in place right now, is just kind of shows how backwards all of this is. I think Durbin just within the last day or so called to reinstate blue slips for judges, and so like it really is just like this. We're gonna just norm ourselves to death here, while the other side has like insurrectionist sympathizers flying flags in front of their house.
Yeah, I can understand why liberals will be frustrated by that.
Yeah.
It is rather frustrating.
Well, with that said, for anybody watching right now, if you want to hear more and see more of Tim, please make sure to subscribe to The Bulwark. That's Tim's YouTube channel that he's on throughout the week. It'll also help build up this pro-democracy ecosystem that spans from left to right, to give any Republicans out there who are watching media our permission structure to know that their only option is not just to jump on Team Red and Donald Trump, that there are other options out here. So again, if you're not yet subscribed, please make sure to subscribe to The Bulwark. Links right here. It's also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Tim Miller.
This is Inside the Right.